Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about, I wouldn't say a lifetime, but a decade of trying to understand injury and trying to get ahead of it. Stress fractures, obviously, the biggest in the industry, something that we believe at Cricket Strength is avoidable and something that we believe isn't caused just by bowling action and workload management. So I'm going to talk to you about some of the things that we see in our players, and I think it's really important at the beginning to create two kind of buckets. We've got medical science, things that are logical and measured, and researchers and university papers and fantastic work being done. And then on the other side of the field, you've just got the people that have done it for so many times, not hyper intelligent, just got so much experience. And doesn't mean that either or are right or wrong. It needs to be more of a blend. So the camp that we're firmly on at the moment is a mixture of the two. Now I say the measurement side of it because from a personal point of view, I've carried out thousands of movement screens across demographics from international cricketers down to under 11s. I always say this, the beauty is we don't need to be hyper intelligent and guess the lottery numbers because everybody's got the same anatomy. We're all trying to do the same thing, turn sideways and bowl a ball. And at the end of the day, 80% of those players that we've assessed do everything predominantly with one side of the body. So if they bowl right arm over, they bat right-handed, they kick a ball right-footed and so on. And 20% have a little bit of left and a little bit of right. So there's this internal balancing system going on. Now what I want to talk today a little bit is about, we know in medical science that screening, catching things before they happen, is the answer. Unfortunately, being reactive, having to fix it once it's broken is not part of the game. So I'm going to try and articulate a little bit about some of the early warning signs today that get me and Ross at Cricket Strength a little bit concerned. Because a stress fracture doesn't just happen overnight. It is a process, a sequence of time or events, and the brain is really, really clever. It will send you warning signs. And unfortunately what happens is those warning signs confuse a lot of people because the warning signs are often a soft tissue injury. So we automatically think, I've just got a problem there. So what happens? You go and fix the soft tissue injury, you rehab the soft tissue injury, you get back to playing, nothing's changed because you've not got to the cause of the soft tissue injury, or you haven't understood why there's so much pressure on that part of the body. So now, for those who kind of follow us, you know the work that we talk about, something in Postural Restoration Institute world is called the left AIC pattern. It basically means that we are slightly predisposed to be shifted. Now that can be either a shift into the right side, it can be a hip hike, it can be a bit of rotation, but either way, it is a predominant anatomical position that we are fighting, all of us, simply because the right-hand side of our body is a bit heavier than the left. The liver's on the right, the diaphragm on the right is heavier than on the left. So we've got this kind of general feeding into the right-hand side. A good little test that you can check for yourself to see if you are in that pattern is if you just stand completely normally, just relax, let your arms drop by your side, look down. If that right foot is turned out to the right slightly, then we know that you have a bias towards that pattern. So when I say the right foot turned out to the right, that is externally rotated to the right, and you're that guy that collapses into a little bit of valgus pronation with the foot as well. So first things, we are trying to combat that pattern because again, if you think about it, it doesn't help with back foot contact because we want to be able to land on the right foot, pivot internally to rotate the pelvis and square the hips. So that's something that is predominantly a big issue that we're constantly trying to work on with our players. Another really, like I was speaking to a guy yesterday, another thing as well, if you're driving over in the UK or you're driving in a right-hand drive car, have a look at where your right foot is on the accelerator. I can guarantee it's pivoted to out towards 2 o'clock when you're driving. So if you're like some of our guys trialing at different counties, driving 4 hours here, 3 hours there, you're going to feed into that pattern. So remember, the brain in a 24-hour day, wherever you spend the time, most time, postures, the brain thinks, well, this is important, so I need to adapt to be able to do well in that position. So that's the left AIC pattern that we're dealing with. Now, that pattern that actually creates this shift towards the right has a knock-on effect. It means that actually what happens is the right shoulder is slightly internally rotated and the right shoulder is more in front of the left. The left is more externally rotated. If you want to know if that's you, go and stand with your nose up against a wall and see if your right shoulder is ahead of the left. It is with me. I've been driving a lot this week and I fight this pattern quite a lot. So it's a good little test that you can do for it. Now that also means that the right hip is externally rotated, left hip opposite. And the unfortunate thing with this pattern is the lower lumbar spine gets it. Now what I mean by that is, I'm going to exaggerate this so you can see. If I am twisted to the right, and obviously I'm not that far twisted to the right, and my eyes are now in that direction, my brain goes, well, I need to level up. So I will now turn my head and neck and my lumbar spine back to the left to actually have the eyes forward. So what happens is that now we've got this twisting torque effect in the lumbar spine. Checklist number 1, we all have varying degrees of this pattern. If you have got the lumbar spine that's already twisted and torqued back together and you load that pattern in a back squat, even a deadlift, to be honest with you, any straight bar, you're going to compress the spine in that position. So again, this pattern is huge. It's part and parcel of what we're trying to fight. Now, let's just say that we've got you through that pattern and you're okay, you've got varying degrees of it, but you're functioning and you're playing. Warning sign for me number 1 that comes out is any form of soft tissue injury, whether it be a bit of a groin, quad, hamstring, anything that's surrounding the pelvis and below the pelvis. Now, also worried about a calf strain because I see quite a bit of that just in general use and impact when it comes to bowling. But when I hear about a quad or an adductor or a groin, predominantly on the left-hand side we see it because we are, as creatures in this left AIC pattern, we are actually firing more load through the left-hand side of the body. So when I see the left-hand side, I get a little bit more, well, okay, that's not great. Right-hand side, we often find that it's not a precursor to anything else. But remember, what I'm trying to put across to you now is a roadmap for the end of the roadmap that we don't want, which is a stress reaction or a stress fracture, the final domino that gets it. So we want to be able to go, okay, right, let's just say that this is me. I've got a left kind of quad injury or continual tear. I'm in a little bit of pain with it. I rehab the quad, I go back to playing, the quad goes again. And for no sense at all, we're now chasing pain a lot of the time. Now, let's just say that the next phase of this, which is the real red flag, and we've seen it this season in players, it is for a right arm bowler, it's this right shoulder. Now, once that right shoulder starts to flare up, especially with throwing, usually not so much bowling, they're usually players that can get away with bowling, but you ask them to throw, they've got problems with it. Their gym sessions, they're feeling a bit of soreness. It could be the bicep tendon, it could be the front or the back of the shoulder. But either way, you'll start with some general irritation that you will be able to bowl through, but there's some form of throwing and you'll feel it there. Now, why is that such an important part to the roadmap? So there is something called the superficial back line, which if you go and read anything in Thomas Myers anatomy trains and fascial lines, it's a connective fascial line from this right shoulder diagonally across the body to the opposing hip. Big stabilization. Everything that you want in athletic performance really does need these lines to be actively engaged and doing their jobs fundamentally. So if you think about it now, what we've got is this disengaged or the superficial back line. We have a shoulder that's in pain. Again, now people are then trying to clear the shoulder, fix the shoulder. They get the shoulder back. But because of this final part of the body, this destabilization, this is where the rubbing of the joints happen, because that's all it really is. It's a deviation between the two joints. It can either compress forward or to the side, usually to the side, hence why everybody believes that lateral flexion causes the stress fracture. No, it's not. It's just such a one-dimensional thought process. Let's get them out of lateral flexion and they won't break their backs. Brilliant. That's basically it. So what we have to be able to understand is when the shoulder flares up, I believe something is coming. Couldn't tell you exactly when. It can be a long time period, and this is where the research camp to the experience camp comes, that you can't package up this into, okay, week 1, week 2, week 3. Same with the rehab. So if anybody ever tries to sell you a PDF on a rehab of a stress fracture, I suggest you wouldn't do that. It's probably best. If anybody says to you, your physiotherapist, you need to stretch your hamstrings and get your core tighter, which is kind of the generalized advice, please don't do that. And as you keep going through this myriad of kind of injury to rehabilitation to back to play, you need a lot of detail. And that's why when we've done this hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, it's something that I can tell you every single road to recovery, every bit of rehab has a little bit of nuance in it. It has a little bit of variation and a little bit of change for every individual because we're all unique. But just to kind of summarize it, look, left AIC pattern, go and have a look at it. It's just, it's something that we have to fight, especially as rotational athletes. Soft tissue, lower limb, quad, hamstring, okay, right, I've got that sorted. The shoulder is the red light for me now. That's where I'm firmly fixed on when I hear that the shoulder is an issue. And if the shoulder is an issue, you can be damn sure that the next thing that's going to happen, if you follow the sequence, is this is going to flare up. So that is a baseline of a blueprint to how to stay ahead of this inevitable, which is what the coaching teams say. They say out there, if you bowl, you're going to get a stress fracture. What a crock of shit.